although, thanks, Pat. Time to introduce Jone. And Jone was the ethical culture clergy leader here in Brooklyn for a number of years, so many of you know her well, but some of you, she may be new to you. So she was here actually since 1991, right? No, you've been an ethical culture leader since 1991, excuse me, having been a Unitarian Universalist minister before that. And she served as the interim clergy leader here until 2019. And Jone currently offers community support through workshops and writing. Many of us here at the Brooklyn Society took your most recent workshop, Immunity to Change, very powerful, very helpful, including Community Matters on Substack, Circles of Humanity, Being Human Together, a guide for community building circles. Jone, you didn't give us a longer bio, but I know there's a lot here to tell, but maybe that's because you have so much to tell us. And I really appreciate your being here. Jone is a dear friend and colleague, and one of the many things I admire about you is your memory. You seem to remember every book you've ever read and are able to call it at the appropriate moment, for which I'm always grateful. And I'm looking forward to learning more from you this morning. So come on up.
Oh, it's good to be back. A platform address in an ethical culture Sunday meeting is where we try to focus our minds on ideas that we hope will help us live more ethical, more responsible, more purposeful lives. You've had several talks on purpose in recent months, and I'm offering my thoughts to you as you continue that focus. A couple quotes that were also in the introduction. One of that most ancient of human books which survives says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." A vision or a purpose, it is what creates a community, nourishes people who create and join that community. It is what makes community possible. Without the purposeful actions of some people with a vision over 100 years ago who started this ethical society, it would not exist. While we have purpose, we can stay together and carry forward. Purpose, I think, is one of those profound and important human needs that is often described best with metaphors or picturesque images and similes. Someone said purpose is like an area of low pressure, helping the wind to move in a certain direction. Or purpose is like a lodestar, that star in the sky that once served as a guide for seafarers or land travelers to make sure they were going in the right direction, long before the telescope and GPS were invented. In the Northern Hemisphere, the guiding star was Polaris, the North Star, which seems not to change position from day to day, but to be steady and secure. There's a reason Frederick Douglass named his abolitionist newspaper the North Star. "Hitch your wagon to a star," said Ralph Waldo Emerson. Purpose also applies to individuals. We each have purposes and move towards them, guiding our movement by our own personal lodestars, our purpose. Deciding on a purpose is usually the first step to effective action. After all, as that character in Lewis Carroll said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. As an individual without purpose, you really don't have a way to know if you're going the right way. Many years ago, I heard another metaphor for purpose in groups, maybe not so beautiful, but very practical. Imagine, the seminar leader suggested, that your group is standing together somewhere inside an upside down huge cardboard box. How do you move the box? Well, if people in the box move to the sides of the box and push, you are all working very hard and contributing a lot to the group's efforts. And if you space yourselves evenly and push on all four sides of the box with equal pressure, what's going to happen? That's right, the box isn't going to move. It may even break or collapse. Now contrast that to everyone in that box pushing on the same side of the box. And what happens then? It moves in that direction. The only way to move that group of people inside the box is for them to be pushing on the same side of the box. You know, it's an imperfect metaphor and not as artistic as some, but I think it's a helpful one. Well, what happens if you're inside that box and you distribute yourselves around half the inside and push on two adjacent sides of the box? Well, actually, you'll move then too. And you'll move in the direction of the corner of the box. A physics major could probably do the calculations, but just trust me, there's a lot of wasted energy in that scenario. You're going to move, but not as fast given the strength of the group, and not really in the direction either group wanted to go. Purpose is like pushing on the same side of the box. So on purpose, some years ago, someone sent me a link on the internet to a then recent major study of religious groups. The study asked the question, did the general belief system of different religious groups make a lot of difference in their growth? Did conservative religious congregations grow more successfully than liberal ones? Did groups that emphasized adherence to God's rules do better, or those that emphasized human freedom? Did those that emphasized obeying authority do better, or those that emphasized individual choice? Well, the answer surprised the people who were doing the study. The answer was that belief in these kinds of senses made absolutely no discernible difference in how well the community thrived and grew. Instead, there were a couple of other factors that actually did make a difference. As I understood the results, the main two of these were these two. First, a warmth and friendliness in the community. This was essential. In fact, it was the best predictor of community growth. That reminded me of when I was a brand new leader and I was in Chicago, and we had a young couple who had attended about 3 times, and I went to talk to them afterwards. And the board was very anxious that I get them to sign the membership blank soon. And I said, so what are you getting out of this? What are you enjoying? And they said, well, this is just a really nice place to be. And I said, have you thought about membership? And they said, well, we're still deciding between you and the Assembly of God Church. And I said, okay, would you tell me what those two have in common? He said, oh, you're the 2 warmest groups in town. Needless to say, they did not join. They also wanted to know when we were going to get around to saying the Lord's Prayer. The second predictor, according to this study, was focus. Focus on a particular set of values or principles or ideas. Some churches in the study drew mostly theological conservatives, and some of those churches drew mostly liberals. But if a community focused on the values and ideas that were meaningful to those who shared them there, then they thrived and grew. It wasn't so much that it was a specific set of values, it was that those within the group shared a general focus. And then programs, events, Sunday meetings tended to have that same focus. And growth happened. In other words, people were pushing on the same side of the box. They could move. And I know some of you are thinking about the cardboard box. How do we know what side of the box to push on? I mean, this religious study basically says pick any side, you'll move. The most energy efficient way to move is to push on the same side of the box. But what if where you're going is the wrong way? In the context of that study, all that really matters is that the churches of different worldviews were able to grow was that they focused. But can't we say that some beliefs themselves are wrong or destructive? To the extreme example, the Nazis had a sense of purpose and were for a number of years rather successful in achieving those purposes, creating a great global tragedy. But do we even want to call it success if the purpose is misguided, wrong, or even evil? Purpose can move us towards great goals and to horrific goals, to grand and noble goals and to petty and small goals. Purpose itself is value-free, like many other forms of power. Electric power can light our homes, cook our food, power our automobiles, and help us do many of the things we want to do. And it can also injure and kill. Purpose has power, and the power of choice must also be exercised so that we choose wisely which side of the box we really want to be pushing on. In other words, it's an ethical decision. So how do we choose the right direction? What are the values and principles for our path? The short answer for an ethical society is that we choose the path that will bring out the best in ourselves and others. The path that honors the human worth of every person, that acknowledges that everybody is somebody, that helps each and every person come alive. The side of the box to push on in an ethical society, I believe, is that which will enhance the individual visions and dreams and purposes of everyone, and not just the visions and purposes and dreams of a privileged few. In an ethical society, our basis of unity is not really whether we believe in or disbelieve in gods or any specific concept of God, or whether we believe in or disbelieve in an afterlife. Our basis of unity, I would contend, is that we decide to live in better relationship with others, in ways that help everyone in that relationship to more fully realize their own possibility. And for me, that's how I define the same side of the box, or one of the ways at least. I talked earlier about how this idea works in different religious groups. They mostly studied Christian groups. And I know that some of you don't consider ethical culture religion. To some of you, the word religion can only be about a supernatural deity. You might therefore conclude that we are not religious since we don't require any such belief here. But for many or most of us, these ethical societies are our religious communities. Even for those who prefer not to identify this as your religion, the ethical society nevertheless fulfills in our lives many of the social functions of a religious congregation, but without the theology and long practiced rituals. One measure of how much we are a religious community or are like one is how well many of these studies of other religious communities fit our own dynamics. In a different study of congregations and what makes them thrive and grow, another group of researchers came up with a list of 6 motivations or needs that people bring to their religious communities. So let's see how these fit with your idea of this ethical society and see which ones fit for you. Compassion, community, hope, challenge, reasonability, and commitment. And these researchers found that these 6 tend to be consistent across different religious groups. The first of them is compassion. People want to give of themselves. They want to share and care. And they want to have friends and acquaintances who care about them. The second is community, a sense of belonging, roots, a place. A third is hope, not a guarantee that everything will come out well, but hope as a refusal to see life as meaningless and a refusal to see obstacles as always final. The fourth is challenge, a sense of accomplishment and achievement, even doing that which others think cannot be done, or which we thought we couldn't do. A fifth is reasonability. Some want what they practice together to make sense, for the ideas that they hear to fit with reality and logic. And the sixth is commitment. Loyalty and duty are motivators for some people, keeping a society like this thriving and surviving over 100 years. Compassion, community, hope, challenge, reasonability, and commitment. We can think of those as purposes or needs that people bring with them into an ethical society. And I believe that in the values and ideals of an ethical society like this one, people can find all of those purposes or needs met. How do we meet compassion? We see every person as having worth and seeing that all our relationships matter and acting on those ideas. And we are seen as having worth by others. Community. You're building here a place of fellowship, even fun and games, where relationships matter. Hope. Believing that there is a path to a better world, even if not enough are on it yet. And that means both in your small world and the larger world. If we can actualize our values and spread them more widely, there's a better world. That's the hope. And challenge, because acting on our values and needs and keeping alive a community that fosters them is not a simple matter. It takes work, it takes creativity, it takes skill building, and we all learn and grow from our involvement. And reasonability. In an ethical society like this one, we don't ask that in order to belong to the community, you subscribe to beliefs and metaphysical ideas that you just can't find logical and rational. We do our best in our ethical societies to stay grounded in reality. And commitment. I hope you're here for the long haul. In every act of work and in keeping this society running is the possibility of learning and growth and appreciation and contribution to something that will live beyond the years of anyone here. When this ethical society is aligned with the values and purposes that you bring in, it will be a successful community. But I want to say a caution on this idea of shared individual and group purpose. Not everyone has exactly the same motivation in the same amount in the same way. Some people want community more than they want commitment. Some people want one of the others more than they want reasonability at the top of the list. But as long as there's a general sharing of values, it can work. Those 6 motivations or needs are not equally powerful for everyone. And the fact is, and the researchers said this, each individual tends to center on 1 to 3 of them. So we don't all have all 6 at the same time. And we may center different ones when we first join a community than when we've been here 25 years. Well, of course, people have other motivations and needs too. A community like this can't meet every need that everyone brings. I think of what someone in this society said to me early in my previous time I was here with you. She said her family considered Sunday their take care of ourselves day. So they came to platform in the morning and then they went to the gym. If we tried to take care of all of their needs here, some of you would probably revolt. Okay, stand up. Let's do 20 minutes of calisthenics together as part of platform. No, I'm not going to do that to you. We don't do everything. A general fit with values and purpose is one thing, but also being 100% consonant with everyone's every purpose all the time, it's not only impossible, it's a way to guarantee failure. A group which tries not to displease anyone at all ever, or never do anything that some person doesn't like, will find itself without any real purpose other than the impossible ideal of keeping everyone happy. Pushing on the same side of the box does not require that we push on exactly the same spot on that box. There's not room to do it. Only a very small group can find that kind of absolute agreement. And even if they did, movement would be a lot slower than if there were a bit of diversity among the needs and values. Purpose has power. A group or person with no purpose usually doesn't find success. Any road will get you there, or you won't get anywhere you want to go. Either way of seeing that is true. Anything you do will seem like success, maybe, but it's likely to be unsatisfying. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, or no road will get you there. In addition to the ideas I've already suggested, there are a couple other ways to look at purpose that have been motivating me in my work with community at this new stage of my life and work. One, which I shared with you in a talk when I was interim leader here, is that of beloved community, a concept that is just about the same age as ethical culture and born out of many of the same challenges and values and visions. The best statement to define that I have found is from the King Center. This is a quote from their website. Beloved community, a community in which people of different backgrounds recognize that we are all interconnected and that our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. A community in which people of different backgrounds recognize that we are all interconnected and that our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. The second one that motivates me is from Adrienne Marie Brown. And I'm drawing here from her little book on accountability and movements, which you saw a quote from earlier. She is specifically in this book talking from her experience in today's abolitionist movement, that organization, that loose movement that wants to move us from retributive to restorative justice in our lives and our institutions. And it's a movement in which she faces the challenge that, like in many of our own ethical societies, it does not always practice what it preaches. Like beloved community, I think this idea comes from a similar place to where our movement is today. She writes, I want us to do better. I want to feel like we are responsible for each other's transformation. Not the transformation from vibrant, flawed humans to bits of ash, but rather the transformation from broken people and communities to whole ones. And she goes on, we need movements rooted in love right now. Movements powered not by difference and exclusion and punishment, but by common ground, compassion, humility, healthy boundaries, patience, and healing. The last of the sources of purpose for me, I find in several of Margaret Wheatley's most recent books on organizations and leadership, particularly the one she calls, Who Do You Choose to Be? She proposes that what our world needs today is groups of people to purposefully create islands of sanity and possibility in a world which is failing in so many ways around us. She calls these islands of sanity. She says, I know it is possible to create islands of sanity in the midst of widely disruptive seas. By sanity, she means being in touch with reality, both the very real problems that humanity is failing to deal with, and also the goodness which is possible for humanity. I think this framing of purpose is the one that right now is motivating me the most. She writes, "An island of sanity is a gift of possibility and refuge. It is a true island because it sets itself apart from the destructive dynamics, policies, and behaviors that are afflicting people on the mainland. It needs to be an island because there is no other way to preserve and protect our best human qualities. We are not seeking sanctuary only. We are seeking contribution. We are magnetized by the island's offerings, the possibility of working together in harmonious relationships to accomplish meaningful works." And she goes on, "We choose to be warriors of the human spirit, people dedicated to creating the conditions for more people to realize their best human qualities." Does that sound like bringing out the best? We develop an island mentality, not to exclude, but to increase our capacity to serve beyond our borders. An island of sanity takes form from our intentions and aspirations. It develops strength and capacity as we work hard, struggle, stay together, figure things out, fail, succeed, learn, forgive, laugh, persevere. It is a pure gift to dedicate ourselves to creating these sanctuaries of possibility. May joy be our familiar companion, she closes. That's Margaret Wakely. And back to me, we need purpose to have community. Without vision or purpose, ideas and plans fail to take root or flourish. There are some common experiences of needs people look for in community, and we can pay attention to those. Purpose is power, but we also need to choose which side of the box is really us. And there are some visions of purpose that might inspire us in making our own choices. So what is the purpose, or what are the purposes of the parts of this community if you're already involved? What metaphors and similes and mental images might help you see clearly what that purpose is? I'd ask you to just consider that. Purpose is, of course, only one phase in getting to what we might call success. The purpose is about figuring out the destination. After finding a purpose, we need to, as individuals or a group looking for purpose, we need to see clearly where we are now, what that gap is between here and our destination, and then decide what steps are going to close that gap. Learn what we need to learn to move through those steps, and then using the lodestar of our purpose to actually move through those steps in the direction of our dreams, living the life that we've imagined. But if purpose is only a first step, it is a necessary first step. Choosing the right lodestar is more important in some ways than many of the other phases of the journey. There is power in purpose, and even more power in choosing the purpose that makes the community come alive. So I'm going to close with one of my favorite readings. I've been using it for more than 30 years, and I long ago lost the attribution of who wrote it. But it is what I remember when I see or hear this phrase about seeking the highest, being holy ground. We meet on holy ground, for that place is holy where we meet one another, where lives touch, where love moves, where hope stirs. There is holy ground. How strong our need is for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. We meet on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into a communal story, as we take on the pride and pain of our companions, as separate selves become community.